You awoke with your body stiff and heavy, the acrid scent of old wood pulp clinging to your rough garments like an unwanted shroud. The cold stone floor beneath your weary feet offered no comfort, its chill seeping slowly into your bones. Outside, the unending rhythm of water beating against the grinding wheels echoed relentlessly, as if mocking the burden that awaited you. The endless task of transforming fragile fibers into sheets of paper, strong enough to endure the relentless demands of the daimyo's court. Your arms throbbed painfully from the repeated crushing and kneading motions, while the damp, sour smell of pulp mixed with the smoky breath of the furnace heated beneath the press. You felt the heavy weight of responsibility hanging over every single sheet produced. A single mistake might not only waste precious resources, but also invite the cruel disdain of your lord, perhaps even fatal consequences. You stood amidst the dim, shadowed room of feudal Japan's paper-making workshop. The walls oozed humidity, colored in muted grays and browns, as wisps of steam curled lazily from buckets and vats. The air was thick, suffused with the smell of soaked bark and harsh firewood smoke, a vast contrast to the easy connectivity of the modern world, where the worst you lament might be a faltering Wi-Fi signal. Imagine now the crushing disappointment if your last log, burning low and bare, failed just as the press needed warming. Such trivial tech troubles fade when measured against centuries of brutal labor. You moved with slow deliberation, hands rough and calloused, tracing once again the familiar ritual, the slow lifting of the heavy wooden press, the careful, even spreading of the damp pulp sheet on the frame, your fingers brushing the ragged edges, feeling the slight resistance as fibers clung reluctantly together. Your breath mingled with the constant hiss of steaming water and the creaking wood around you. Movement became a gentle dance, a repetitive cadence of press, lift, and reshape, each cycle long, deliberate, as the weight of time pressed on your weary muscles. The paper's texture was uneven, some sheets heavier, some thinner, but all vital. With each turn, the monotony wrapped softly around you like a warm, tired blanket, lulling your mind into a steady trance. Your thoughts circled predictably, returning again and again to that weighty fear. One misstep, a slight tear or uneven fold, could spell doom. Yet there was a delicate comfort in the familiarity, each motion repeated like a breathing pattern, slow and constant, whispering resilience. Then an unnatural stillness swept through the workshop. The usual steady drip of water against stone ceased abruptly. The faint murmurs from neighboring houses hushed to silence, and even the restless barking of distant dogs stilled. Your muscles tensed, every fiber alert despite the fog of fatigue. You felt an unseen gaze slice through the heavy air, a silent warning carried on the quiet. Hey, before Morpheus fully claims you, take a quick moment to check if you're still subscribed. Sometimes the button disappears, and I wouldn't want you to miss the next bedtime stories. While you're at it, leave a like soft as a pillow. Tell me in the comments, where are you listening from, and what time is it there? Your presence keeps this peaceful corner alive. Thanks for being part of it. A silence unfolded slowly, like the last leaf falling from a trembling branch. When the drip of water ceased, and the world inside the workshop seemed to hold its breath. Your hands, still braced on the rough wooden frame, felt an unfamiliar stiffness, as if the air itself had thickened, pressing against your skin and lungs. You shifted your weight, the stone floor cold beneath your feet, sending a shiver that crawled up your spine. The faint glow from the dying furnace flickered uncertainly, casting shadows that danced like ghosts along the walls. Curling smoke mixing with the heavy steam rising from the pulp vats. You took a slow, steadying breath, the acrid scent of smoke and wet bark filling your nostrils. There was an uncanny stillness beyond the doors, where the murmurs and distant clamor of the village had faded into nothingness. A subtle tension gripped the room, not fear, but an alertness deeper than weariness. Your fingers crept over the damp fibers of the half-dried sheet on the frame, the texture uneven but familiar, almost stubborn in its resistance. Your arms ached, the dull throb a steady companion from the endless pressing and folding. Yet your palms opened and closed naturally, as if remembering a rhythm long practiced. You moved deliberately toward the edge of the workshop, each step measured against the creaking floorboards beneath your feet. The wooden beams overhead bore the weight of years, their rough grain worn smooth in places by countless hands. Somewhere outside, a single bird's cry shattered the quiet, brief and distant, only to be swallowed again by silence. The cold air clawed at your exposed skin, and your breath emerged in soft puffs, each one a tiny reminder of life pressing on. The noise, or lack of it, felt deliberate, as if time itself had slowed, pulled taut in the space between moments. You noticed the faintest vibration underfoot, a subtle tremor that might have been your pulse, or perhaps something else. The workshop smelled sharper now. The drying paper mingled oddly with something metallic, barely perceptible but persistent, like the tarnish of old iron or a whisper of rust. Your eyes narrowed in the dimness, seeking the source beyond the wooden door's dark slats. You returned cautiously to the press, lowering your hands onto the frame with reverence. The cold metal of the press handle was a contrast to the pulpy softness beneath, slick with a residue that felt slippery but oddly alive. Your muscles tensed as you lifted, the familiar groan of the press echoing faintly in the still air. Slowly, you laid out the next batch of sheets, feeling every fiber's reluctant surrender beneath your touch, each fold a slow surrender to the inevitable passage of time. Outside, a sudden breeze stirred, slipping through a crack near the ceiling, carrying with it the scent of looming rain. The dampness pooled against the walls grew heavier almost instantly, droplets beating and sliding down worn wood like slow tears. The furnace's glow dimmed, the warmth retreating as the cold encroached. You felt it seep inside you, a chill that coated your bones, settling deep beneath the tired ache. You paused in mid-motion, breath caught softly in your throat as your gaze drifted to the shadowed corner of the workshop where the rolled fibers rested. They seemed unusually still, as if holding a secret beneath their quiet surface. Your fingers brushed tentatively across the smooth curves of the prepared pulp, cool and slick, but that faint metallic tang lingered in the air like a secret invitation. For a moment, the repetitive dance of pressing and lifting seemed distant, lost in the widening stillness. A low, distant murmur stirred faintly, threading through the silence, unplaceable, barely there. You strained your ears, the slow creaking of the structure, the soft drip of unseen water, perhaps returning. Yet something else whispered beneath it all, a quiet keening, the sound of wind weaving through cracks and corners, wrapping the workshop in a fragile coat of suspense. Your heart quickened just slightly, not in fear, but in anticipation. Every muscle primed to respond, though your body wished only for rest. Slowly, you resumed your rhythm, the heavy press raised and lowered with deliberate care, the damp sheets sliding beneath your rough hands like reluctant memories. The smoke scent thickened again as the furnace sparked to life, the orange glow flickering wider, blending with the mist curling from the steaming water. The fibers clung more tenderly this time, the nacreous reflections on the thin surfaces catching the dim light, a brief, fragile beauty in an otherwise endless task. You sensed the outside darkening as rain began to patter lightly on the roof, the soft thunder of drops a muted lullaby. The humid heat within the workshop grew denser, pressing down on your shoulders like the unyielding weight of duty. And yet, within that heaviness, the steady cadence of your work became a slow mantra, a thread tying you to this moment, beyond weariness and worry. Then, as you leaned forward to press the final sheet of the batch, your fingers brushed something freshly cold near your foot. Barely discernible, but unmistakably new. A small, smooth fragment, perhaps a sliver of wood, or something metallic, glinted faintly in the fire's glow. Your heartbeat quickened at the unexpected presence, your eyes flicking down to catch the gleam a second time. The irregular shape did not belong among the usual tools or scraps. The air chilled suddenly, the furnace's warmth retreating as if startled. You bent slowly, your motion careful, every breath measured, as you reached toward the object with hesitant fingers. The moment stretched, thick and slow, time suspended in fragile balance. And as your hand closed around the fragment, a faint metallic resonance echoed inside the workshop, like the soft toll of a bell vibrating deep beneath the floorboards, signaling that the quiet was no longer only silence. Something unseen had slipped across the threshold. The small fragment, cool yet oddly weighted in your palm, pulsed faintly with a resonance unlike any ordinary scrap of wood or metal you had ever felt. It glinted subtly in the flickering furnace light, as if holding a secret within its cold surface. Your fingers, rough and aching from the endless cycle of pressing and folding, tightened gently, unwilling to release this unexpected shard. A voice within, muted and cautious, urged you forward, yet movement felt thick, as if you waded through dense shadows. The warmth from the diminished furnace flickered uncertainly above you, casting a wavering glow that barely touched the far walls. Dampness clung to the beams, the bitter scent of soaked bark thickening the air, crawling along your skin like a whispered chill. Outside, the rain gathered strength, its soft patter against the roof now steady and insistent, a low heartbeat marking the passage of moments more heavily than ever before. Water pooled along crevices near the floor, slow droplets coalescing into rivulets that traced silent paths across the wood. Your breath, shallow and measured, mingled with the damp tang of wet paper and the smoky residue of firewood. The rhythmic rising and falling of steam from nearby vats wove a hushed backdrop, interrupted only by the occasional groan of tired wood, its slow creaks speaking of years burdened beneath unseen weight. Each sound seemed heavier here, slowed by the stillness pressing down on your shoulders. A world contracted to the single act of holding this small, cold shard. Reluctantly, your gaze drifted upward to the heavy wooden door, the only barrier between the workshop and the silent village beyond. The slats, worn and darkened with age, allowed only narrow bands of heavy sky to leak through. A faint pulse of light cut through the gloom, a fleeting gleam, like memory, catching the corner of your vision, and your chest tightened in response. Outside, the world seemed to hold its breath just as you did. Waiting, you stepped slowly, each footfall careful and deliberate, pressing away the lingering stiffness that clawed at your joints. The cold stone beneath your feet exhaled a chill you could feel sinking into your calves, a slow seep of discomfort that rooted you in the present, yet whispered of distance. You let your fingers trail across the rough walls as you moved, feeling their cool, damp grain trace a slow rhythm through your fingertips. The smell of wet wood and resin was thick in the air, grounding you, tethering your focus to the weary ritual that had become your life. Reaching the door, your hand hesitated on the iron latch, the metal slick with moisture and cold to your touch. The faint hum of the fragment in your palm seemed to vibrate and sync with your pulse. Slowly, cautiously, you disengaged the latch, the soft creak of the hinge louder than any sudden clap, a deliberate sound, patient and deliberate, refusing to break the dense quiet. Outside, the rain fell harder, a steady curtain of silver threads under the bruised sky. The breath of wind that followed carried the scent of wet earth and crushed leaves, pressing inward like a slow tide. You stepped beyond the threshold, body tense as the chill wind wrapped its fingers tightly around your shoulders, draping you in cold and mist. The world beyond the workshop had transformed. The muted colors of a fading day had softened into a palette of grays and blues, each shape blurred beneath the steady fall of rain. You looked down, the fragment still clutched softly, almost reverently. It seemed to hum faintly beneath your skin, a heartbeat out of time with your own, drawing your gaze slowly toward the narrow path that curled through the trees beyond the village limits. Shadows gathered there, tangled branches, whispering secrets in the quiet. The scent of damp moss and decomposing wood drifted up in slow waves. Your feet moved forward without command, sinking into the soft earth, the cold rain pressing down, yet oddly comforting in its constancy. The path was uneven and littered with fallen leaves that stuck wetly to your worn shoes. Each step sent a muted crunch through the silence, a slow counterpoint to your breathing, all measured, deliberate. Around you, the trees stood tall and silent, their dark trunks slick with rain. The occasional drip from leaf to earth echoed faintly, a whispered rhythm that wove itself into your heartbeat. Shards of lightning briefly sketched the twisted shapes of branches against the charcoal sky, only to be swallowed again by clouds heavy with storm. The fragment in your hand pulsed gently, and, though the chill brushed your skin, an unaccountable warmth settled deep within your chest. The tension of the workshop, the endless pressing and folding, felt momentarily distant, replaced by the slow unfolding of anticipation and the fragile promise of discovery. In the distance, a faint glow flickered, soft and hesitant, like a trembling lantern left to guard a forgotten path. Your pace slowed further, each motion deliberate, as the rain grew steadier and the world seemed to contract around you. The scent of rust and wet earth intensified, mingling with the metallic trace still clinging faintly to the fragment. As you drew closer, the outlines of a small clearing emerged, barely visible, outlined by the swollen shadows of ancient trees. The air felt thicker here, pressing close with the weight of years and whispers not spoken aloud. The pulse in your palm grew stronger, a soft hum now unmistakable, vibrating through your fingers, through your bones. Your heart quickened slightly, not with fear, but with a quiet sense of inevitability. Movement slowed to a crawl, each breath drawn long and steady, savoring the chill and the wetness, the taste of rain on your lips, and the weight of the unknown pressing just beyond reach. Before you could step further, the glowing flicker leapt suddenly upward, brightening and then fading, like a spirit briefly stirred. The fragments slipped from your fingers, spinning slowly through the air, catching faint light before it landed with a hollow click on the sodden earth. At that precise moment, a low, distant sound arose, too deep for human voice, too measured for wind. It rolled through the clearing like a slow drumbeat beneath your feet, gathering strength with each tremor. And you knew with waking certainty that the quiet was over. The shard lay heavy in your palm, still pulsing softly, an echo of an unseen voice beneath the steady rain. You lingered, hand poised just above the sodden earth, the dim lantern flicker casting fleeting shadows like hesitant spirits on the soaked leaves around you. The woods pressed in close, their towering trunks slick with moisture, their murmurs whispering secrets you could not yet grasp. Breathing slowly, you let the chill of the rain seep into your skin, each droplet a quiet hammer against the brittle armor of your fatigue. The fragments hum, mingled faintly with the distant rhythm of thunder, a slow drum that rippled through the dense silence. Your senses sharpened, the wet scent of moss curling through the air, the softness of mud beneath your boots, the cold bite of the wind as it swept past, curling leaves in gentle spirals. You knelt, fingers brushing the earth as if to anchor yourself, the rough bark of a fallen branch pressing into your palm. The fragment pulsed warmer, a heartbeat out of sync, yet steady in its strange cadence. The fragile beauty of the moment held you captive, a brief oasis beneath the vast, storm-dark sky. Each breath was a slow exhalation of mist, a whispered farewell to the oppressive stillness left behind in the workshop. Rising, you felt the weight of 100 unfinished sheets pressing against memory, fibers reluctant, seams barely holding. The rhythm of your mind folded over itself, tracing the familiar, aching loops of the press, the slow dance of pulp and steam. But this moment was different. The fragment pulled you forward, away from the drudgery, through trees dripping like slow tears. The path beckoned, littered with cracked leaves and the soft patter of continuing rain. Your steps were measured, echoing softly against the thick carpet of undergrowth. The trees swayed faintly with the wind's breath, their shadows shifting like restless dreams. Somewhere beyond, a faint glimmer winked again, a lantern's hesitant glow, half swallowed by the deep grays of dusk. It was a quiet promise, fragile and bright. Closer now, the earth beneath your shoes softened, cold water gathering in shallow pools, reflecting fractured fragments of sky. The humid air thickened, carrying hints of ancient resin and the salty tang of long-fallen iron. The gentle hum thrummed stronger, a tether weaving through the rain, anchoring you to something beyond sight or thought. Each breath drew in the mossy earth, the wet stone, the whisper of roots winding beneath the surface. A low murmur rose, not from wind or rain, but a voice stretched over time, a distant pulse beneath your feet, reminding you the world was vast beyond your small, pressing task. You slowed, feeling the dampness tug against your legs, the cold settling deep into bones, weathered by endless toil. The fragment in your grasp continued its soft thrum, steady and sure. A secret heart beating beneath the storm. Your gaze lifted, catching the faint outline of a hollow, nestled beneath the leaning boughs. The clearing lay wrapped in a mist thick as wool, each leaf dripping with pearls of rain. Shadows pooled low, shifting lazily beneath the muted lantern's glow, fragile light held captive by the heavy air. The scent of wet earth and old wood whispered tales you had yet to learn. The world felt held in a suspended breath, waiting. You stepped with careful resolve into the clearing, the ground soft beneath your feet, saturated with the quiet weight of wet decay. The fragment's warmth pulsed through your palm, threading into your skin, as if inviting you to listen deeper. Your chest rose slowly, carrying the cool, damp air mixed with the subtle metallic trace that clung still to the shard's surface. A faint glow blossomed suddenly, brighter this time, a flicker like the final spark before sleep. It spread slowly through the mist, teasing veins of light along twisted roots and mossy stones. You lowered your hand, the fragment spinning softly between your fingers before settling again, its vibration rising. Subtly like a muted call, the air grew thick with expectation, trembling with a quiet charge. Somewhere beyond the trees, a distant hollow sound began, a long, slow resonance that rolled out in waves. Beneath your boots, beneath the rain's steady patter. Like a bell struck deep within the earth, its toll stretched out, measured and deliberate, urgent and patient all at once. You stood still, the moment crystallizing around you. The rain now softened to silken threads, the wind easing to a gentle sigh. The fragments hum entwined with the sound beneath the soil, weaving a web of unseen connection. Your heart held a steady beat, not of fear, but awakening, drawn taut by the delicate balance between knowing and mystery. A single slender branch cracked beneath a distant footfall, almost inaudible in the charged quiet. You turned slowly, eyes tracing the shifting shapes beyond the edge of the glow, where darkness thickened and secrets waited. And then, just as the toll sounded again, deeper, fuller, the fragment slipped from your grasp. It fell, spinning through the mist like a slow-motion star, the hollow click of its landing ringing across the soaked earth like a whispered summons. You knelt, heart tightening with the silent certainty that had settled like frost upon your spirit. The quiet was over. The fragment lay still beneath your fingers, a cold pulse that flickered faintly, like a secret heartbeat beneath your skin. The rain had softened to a mere whisper now, threads of moisture drifting slow as fog through the dense pines. Your breath came out in steady puffs, each one a quiet rhythm measured against the gentle tapping of droplets on leaves. The air felt thick, heavy with wet earth and the faint, bitter tang of iron, like a memory stretched thin across time. You shifted your stance, the soft mud squelching faintly beneath your worn shoes, clinging to the grooves like reluctant memories. Each step was an echo in the quiet, soft, deliberate, cautious. The trees around you stood sentinel, their slick bark gleaming dully in the gray gloom. Shadows pooled low, curling like slow smoke around ancient roots and moss-covered stones. The clearing breathed softly, as if holding its own breath alongside you. Your heart beat steady, neither quickening nor slowing, tied to the insistent hum that vibrated through the fragment. It felt less like an object now, and more like a thread, loose and shimmering, stretched taut between you and something unseen. The cold seeped deeper into your clothes, a numbness creeping slowly from your fingertips to your shoulders. And yet within that chill was a faint ember, a subtle warmth, fragile as the flickering lantern that danced just ahead. You moved forward again, every motion slow and purposeful. The ground beneath your feet was uneven, littered with dripping leaves that clung silently. Your fingers brushed wet branches as you passed, the rough texture a grounding touch. The air was filled with a low murmur now, the sound rising and falling beneath the steady patter of rain, a resonance from deep beneath the earth, slow and patient like a distant drum. The glow ahead pulsed softly, a beacon veiled by mist, casting pale light over slick stones and twisted roots. You stepped carefully into the clearing center, water pooling around your boots like liquid glass. The fragment hummed stronger here, thrumming gently as if waking from a long slumber. Around you, the shadows shifted, folding quietly into themselves, the forest holding its secrets close. You've never seen this part of the woods so still, so watchful. The scent of damp moss mixed with the metallic whisper that clung faintly to the air, as if the earth itself exhaled a slow, ancient breath. You knelt down, fingers trembling slightly as you touched the fragile skin of the earth. The fragment's warmth pressed lightly into your palm, an uneven heartbeat against the cold, wet soil. Your eyes traced the faint outline of something half-buried, a shape that caught the little light with a subtle glimmer, just beyond the reach of the lantern's last flickers. A low rumble vibrated through the ground beneath you, slow and mournful. It was neither thunder nor the shifting of the trees, but something else, a deep pulse that filled the clearing with a vibrating echo. The forest seemed to lean closer, watching, waiting. Your breath came slow, each inhale tasting of rain and ancient wood. You stood, the soft glow ahead flickering once more before dimming to near darkness. The fragment slipped gently from your hand, spinning silently through the damp air before settling with a quiet click upon the mossy earth. The metal now caught what little light remained, flashing pale and cold in the twilight. For a moment, all was still. The rain softened further, falling like silk threads, brushing your skin. The hum within the fragment slowed, flattening into a gentle thrum that's in a suspended breath, an unspoken promise vibrating through the damp air. Then came a faint sound, far off, almost lost beneath the soft patter of rain, a rustling deeper in the woods. The branches cracked discreetly, a subtle shift in the shadows beyond the dim glow. Your gaze sharpened, eyes scanning the shifting dark where movement seemed to gather. The forest whispered around you in voices just beyond hearing, as your breath lingered in your chest. The earth beneath shifted slightly, a subtle tremor that rolled through the damp ground to your feet, slow, insistent, like a heartbeat, murmuring beneath the thread of your awareness. The air grew heavier, thick with the salt of wet stone and the bitter hint of metal. The fragment's glow pulsed once more, brighter and steadier, like a silent drum resonating in twilight. You took a slow step back, every sense alert but calm. The storm's edge passed softly, the rain thinning into a mist that hung low between the trunks and twisted branches. The fragments of light, woven through the canopy, flickered uncertainly, blurring the line between shadow and substance. Your fingers brushed the cold metal shard again, the pulse now almost a whisper, a fragile bond tethered to something deep within the heart of the clearing. Just beyond your sight, shapes stirred, vague and slender, like smoke caught in slow currents. Something waited there in the shrouded dark, patient and distant. Your chest rose and fell steadily. The quiet had broken, yet the stillness remained, thick with tension, woven with the subtle promise of what was to come. Then, without warning, the shard's pulse quickened sharply, a sudden clean tone ringing through the night air. A pure low note that echoed like a bell struck beneath the ground, summoning the shadows closer. You dropped to one knee, breath caught in a slow, steady rhythm, waiting. And in that drawn-out silence, a pair of eyes glinted just beyond the misty veil, watching, unblinking, and unmistakably alive. The fragment rested cold and heavy in your palm, its faint pulse a whisper against your skin, sinking slowly with the measured cadence of your breath. The rain had softened into a mist, each droplet a ghostly brush across your face and hands, weaving a delicate veil over the clearing's damp earth. Around you, the towering trunks stood silent, their bark slick and dark, glistening faintly in the dim glow from the lantern flickering, somewhere just beyond the mist's edge. Your boots pressed into the softened moss, the subtle give of wet ground, quiet beneath each slow step. The air was thick with the scent of soaked earth and rusting iron, an ancient smell that seemed to seep from the soil itself, as if the forest held memories embedded deep just beneath the surface. You traced your fingers along the fragment's uneven edges, noting the slight warmth that pulsed oddly beneath the cold exterior, tethering you to something unseen. A faint metallic tang clung to the air, blending with the dampness, elusive but persistent. Behind you, the woods remained still, their shadows long and absorbed into the mist, as though watching, waiting for a motion or a sound that might break the quiet fold. Your heart thudded quietly, each beat slow and steady, wrapped tight in the blanket of damp air and muted twilight. The fragment's pulse seemed to intensify slightly, its rhythm imperceptibly shifting, inviting you forward. A low murmur rose beneath the steady patter of rain, a sound neither wind nor creature, but something deeper, but slow vibrations seeming to emanate from the ground itself. Your gaze dropped to the moss beneath your hands, dark and trembling with unseen energy, a muted thrum just beneath the surface. You knelt carefully, feeling the wet soil cool and yielding beneath your touch, the moisture seeping through your worn sleeve to mingle with the fragment's whisper. The forest around you seemed to breathe quietly, its shadows tilting slightly with a gentle wind that carried whispers too soft to catch, drifting like echoes from a distant place. Leaves, slick and shining, clung in bundles, releasing quiet droplets that splashed softly into puddles. Somewhere distant, a single branch creaked, folding slowly into the chorus of sounds that wrapped you like a cloak, thin and protective. Rising slowly, you cradled the fragment against your chest, its soft resonance beating like a heart of its own. The clearing stretched around you, cloaked in gray haze, the lantern's glow flickering briefly before dimming, swallowed deeper by the night's heavy breath. The dampness clung to the air, pressing tightly against your skin, your senses. The fragment thrummed gently, a faint beacon calling you outward, pulling you through the heavy stillness. Each step you took was measured, deliberate, your feet pressing softly into the wet earth, stirring tiny scents of moss and earthworms, faint and fleeting. Your eyes moved slowly across the underbrush, catching glimpses of silver reflections cast from lingering raindrops, drops that mirrored the faint glimmer resting in your grasp. The forest scent deepened, a mix of pine resin, wet stone, and something sharper, metallic and cold, like the echo of old blades long forgotten. Your breath emerged in soft puffs, swirling pale clouds against the dark, moist air, each one a fragile reminder of your presence in this muted world. The weight of the fragment pressed reassuringly against your palm, tethered somehow to the steady hum you felt beneath. The soil, an unseen pulse threading through the earth and sky. The sound beneath your feet grew stronger, a slow roar rolling through stone and root, rising like a buried drumbeat, awakening. Suddenly, a flash, a brief, sharp flare of lightning, etched the gnarled branches against the sky, momentarily revealing a silhouette just beyond the mist's boundary. A figure stood still, draped in shadows, blending seamlessly with the dark shapes woven among the trees. Your pulse tightened, fragment pulsing sharply like a warning. Yet the air carried no threat, only a quiet invitation, laced with ancient patience. The rain softened, the storm's edge pulling away in tentative waves, leaving only the soft drip of water from twisting leaves. The forest exhaled, a slow, palpable sigh that seemed to ripple through the branches and cling to the heavy earth. Your gaze held steady on the shadowed figure, who remained still and silent, watching without movement, a sentinel in the gathering night. You stepped forward, the cold damp pressing at your skin like a slow tide, each breath drawn long and deliberate. The fragment's pulse matched your heartbeat now, a tether lifting you gently toward the unknown. The lantern's glow flared again, scattering ghostly light across wet stones and tangled roots, before flickering low, a dwindling pulse in the gathering dark. A low, resonant tone unfolded, clear and pure, a bell's call borne on the night air, deep within the earth, rolling out in measured waves. The forest listened, shadows tightening, the hidden eyes glinting faintly through the gloom. Every sound wove itself into the fabric of silence, the fall of a leaf, the soft splash of water, the whispered rustling of unseen wings. Your hand jerked slightly, and the fragment slipped free, spinning slow like a falling star through the thick night air. It landed with a hollow click on the mossy ground, the sound sharp, distinct, breaking the stillness like a secret told aloud. You bent low, heart steady but thrumming beneath your ribs. The glinting pulse from the shard mingled with the low bell's toll as the shadow shifted, stepping forward a fraction. Eyes met yours, keen, deliberate, and unyielding, holding a quiet question, an unspoken invitation. And with that gaze, the night seemed to hold its breath once more. The moment stretching thin as a fragile thread between what was known and what was yet to come. The fragment rested quietly in your palm, its faint pulse a steady whisper beneath the steady cadence of your breath. The rain had dwindled to a soft mist, sprawling like a fading veil over the earth, blurring the towering trees whose wet bark gleamed dully beneath the pale lantern light. Your feet pressed lightly into the mossy ground, the softness allowing a gentle give that barely broke the hushed silence. Around you, the forest held its breath, vast and inscrutable in its dimness. A cool chill seeped slowly through your soaked garments. each droplet tracing a quiet path down your neck and arms, mingling with the damp earth scent rising from the softened soil. The fragment's pulse throbbed gently, like a faint heartbeat echoing just beneath your skin. An invitation you could neither resist nor fully understand. Shifted your stance cautiously, the moist ground beneath your boots yielding softly as your toes pressed into the tangled carpet of fallen leaves. The forest seemed to close around you, each shadow folding quietly into the next, the branches swaying with a delicate rhythm born from the lingering wind. A distant sigh whispered through the treetops, the tired breath of night dissolving into the rain's gentle hush. Somewhere beyond the clearing, water dripped from leaves like slow tears, echoing softly in the stillness. Your breath came slow and even, each exhale a mist that mingled with the damp air, thick with memories not your own. Ahead, the faint flicker of the lantern wavered, casting slender beams that braided shadows across slick stones and knotted roots. You stepped forward carefully, your movements deliberate, stripped of haste, as if the earth beneath expected each footfall with careful patience. The fragment thrummed faintly, tethering you closer to the unknown depths, pressing beyond the veil of mist. The scent of moss and wet wood deepened, mingling with a metallic tang that lingered thinly on the air, as though the forest itself whispered of rusted secrets, long buried beneath forgotten soil. A low murmur stirred beneath the steady rhythm of rain, a slow vibration that seemed to rise from the ground, settling deep within your bones like the muted pulse of a distant drum. Kneeling gently on the moist earth, your hand brushed the sodden moss, rich and soft beneath your calloused skin. The fragment's warmth seeped into your palm, uneven yet persistent, like the heartbeat of something asleep but stirring. Around you, shadows shifted ever so slightly, bending as if the forest breathed and listened in the pause between moments. Your eyes lifted slowly to the dim horizon, where the trees closed tight, their thick boughs weaving a lattice against the darkening sky. The rain softened further, a silk-threaded caress on your exposed arms, chilling yet strangely comforting. The mist crept closer, swallowing shapes whole, blurring the line between earth and shadow. A sudden sharp flicker of lightning arced silently across the sky, tracing the gnarled outlines of branches etched starkly against ink-black clouds. For a breath, the world held itself suspended between the flash and the dark. In that fleeting moment, you glimpsed a figure, still and silent, cloaked in darkness, its eyes fixed unwaveringly on you from just beyond the lantern's waning glow. Your heart did not leap, but tightened with a steady rhythm of awakening. The fragment pulsed sharply now in response, ringing softly inside your palm, like a low bell struck deep beneath the soil. The forest stilled, as if holding its collective breath, suspended by threads of quiet tension that stretched taut around you. You rose slowly, every movement measured, the moist earth yielding beneath your boots with a muted sigh. The fragment's glow softened, yet its pulsing beat threaded itself into your veins, binding you to the night's secret claim. The shadowy figure shifted imperceptibly, blending deeper into the trees, a silent sentinel keeping watch in the gathering dark. The rain faded to a whisper, droplets falling like gentle mist upon leaf and stone. The muffled cadence of your breath and heartbeat matched the fragment's steady thrum, a delicate harmony beneath the heavy shroud of secrets, pressing down like damp wool. Around you, the air thickened, heavy with the scent of rain-soaked wood and iron, carrying whispers older than the forest itself. Your gaze held firm on the place where the figure had stood, but now only shadows remained, folding slowly into the embrace of night. The pulse within the fragment quickened once more, sending a cool shiver rippling through your fingers. It was a call, subtle, yet insistent, a summons to follow deeper into the hidden folds of this ancient place. The darkened path ahead beckoned, tangled with roots and dripping leaves, winding into the dense embrace of the forest's heart. With careful steps, you moved forward, feeling the rhythm of the fragment and earth entwine beneath your skin, a fragile thread weaving you into the vast, timeless story unfolding just beyond the shadows. Then, just as the lantern's glow flickered low, a soft, distant toll rang out, a clear, resonant bell sound that rolled through the woods, steady and slow, like a heartbeat measured in stone and rain. You paused, breath caught in the quiet space between moments, senses stretched taut, and from the depths of the dark, eyes gleamed once again, watching, steady and unblinking, waiting for the next step in a story long whispered by the earth beneath your feet. The cold mist hung thick between the trees as you stood motionless, the faint bell's toll fading into the moist night. Every breath you drew carried the sharp bite of wet earth and the tangle of old roots beneath your boots, grounding you in the unsettled quiet. The fragment lay heavy in your palm, its pulse a steady tether, linking you to the vast shadows pressing in from all sides. Light from the fading lantern fractured across slick stones and coiled moss, casting brittle patterns that twisted and vanished as breeze whispered through trembling branches. The air was dense, damp, smelling of rain-soaked wood and a lingering trace of metal, faint but unmistakable, as if the forest itself exhaled an ancient secret you could almost touch. You traced your fingers slowly over the fragment's cold surface, noting the strange warmth beneath, subtle and reluctant, like a slow ember hidden within frost. The rain had softened to a gentle patter, each drop a quiet drum against leaves and earth, threading a steady rhythm that wove beneath your heartbeat. The silence of the forest felt watchful, like waiting walls holding their breath alongside you. Your gaze drifted beyond the clearing's edge where shadows thickened into masses, shapes folding one into another, indistinct but alive. There was a sense of slow movement, a life not tied to any creature you could name, but something older, patient and enduring. You clenched the fragment lightly, the warmth pulsing in time with a breath you couldn't hear, but somehow knew belonged to the earth itself. Stepping forward, each footfall was muffled in the wet moss, the ground yielding with a soft, reluctant sigh beneath your weight. Cool air brushed your face, lifting droplets of mist that tangled in your hair and traced delicate paths down your neck. The scent of resin and damp decay filled your nostrils, weaving with the metallic tang in layers intricate and unchanging. Reaching the heart of the clearing, you knelt slowly onto sodden earth, fingers spread wide to drink in the subtle vibrations pulsing through the soil. The fragment hummed softly, a song faint enough to feel rather than hear, threading a silent melody through the cold dampness beneath your skin. The world around you seemed to breathe in synchrony. The leaves, the earth, the rushing pulse beneath the surface. Above, the lantern's slender glow flickered uncertainly, casting long fingers of wavering light that coiled like smoke before vanishing. Somewhere farther, water dripped from darkened leaves, the drops falling slow and steady, a quiet echo in the vast stillness. Your breath came slow, a measured mist that curled softly in the cool air and dissipated as if swallowed by the forest's patient watch. The fragment's soft glow shifted, suddenly brighter, casting a curling moss and soaking bark nearby. The earth's quiet pulse deepened, a low, rolling thrum that seemed to spiral outward like the breath of something awakening. Your hands tightened instinctively around the shard, warmth tethering your skin to the cold metal like a fragile promise. The shadows just beyond the lantern's touch shifted more deliberately now, a slow, deliberate dance of dark shapes weaving closer, the air thickening with expectancy. A chill snaked down your spine as the ground beneath your knees rumbled faintly, uneven and slow, echoing beneath root and stone, a heartbeat felt more than heard. You lifted your eyes toward the shifting forms, searching the darkness for eyes, for signs of movement beyond the mist. The silence stretched taut, every sound etched in relief against the sturdy quiet. The drip of water, the rustle of leaves, the soft crack of a branch crumbling beneath weight unseen. The forest seemed to lean in, a hushed congregation holding vigil. A flash of movement caught your eye, a shape emerging slowly from the folds of the undergrowth, near indistinct but unmistakably human in posture. The air held tight around you, every nerve taut yet steady. The fragment's pulse quickened even as the figure halted just beyond the fragile light. A silhouette, carved sharp against the endless dark. Breath caught low in your throat, you remained rooted, senses filling with the weight of the moment. The cold, the damp, the distant thunder rolling softly like a slow drum in the deep woods. The fragment's warmth bled into your hand, a whisper of heat contrasting with the chill settling in your bones. The figure stepped forward, with measured grace, deliberate but silent, moving between shafts of mist and lantern glow. Your heart traced an even, steady rhythm, neither fear nor welcome, only a quiet readiness, bound in long-ago rituals you could not name, but somehow remembered. Raindrops gathered anew, slipping slowly down the curve of leaves and pooling in miniature lakes at your feet. The forest exhaled softly, a sudden breeze stirring the mist, weaving it tightly around the shape before it vanished again, swallowed by shadow and rain. You exhaled slowly, letting tension drip away with the rain, your gaze lingering on the spot where the figure had stood. The fragment hummed faintly, a low, steady call urging you forward. You rose, each movement deliberate as a soft moss. And then, in the thick stillness, the ground before you trembled once more sharply this time, as if answering a summons long delayed. A brilliant flash of lightning tore across the sky, brief, jagged, and blinding, painting the forest in stark lines of black and white. In that intense instant, your eyes caught a gleam deeper in the darkness, a pair of eyes, fierce and unblinking, glowing steady with an ancient fire, fixed unflinchingly on you across the rain-slicked clearing. The quiet shattered like thin ice. The eyes glimmered just beyond the veil of mist, steady and unblinking, holding you in their quiet gaze like a long-awaited secret, finally unveiled. For a moment, the cold of the rain and the damp earth slipped away, melting beneath a fragile thread of connection that pulsed from the fragment. In your hand to those inscrutable depths, something ancient stirred, patient and slow, weaving the forgotten pulse of rain and root into a harmony only your heart seemed to catch. You exhaled softly, lifting your head to drink in the muted chorus of the forest night. The gentle drip of lingering raindrops, the rustle of leaves whispering goodnight, the faint sigh of wind bending branches in a tender dance. The clearing held its breath with you, suspended in that perfect moment between past and future, where the weight of exhaustion seemed to lift on a breeze scented with moss and wet stone. Slowly, your fingers loosened their grip, releasing the fragment to rest upon the glistening moss with a faint, measured click. The low bell-like pulse it carried settled into silence, as if yielding to the forest's embrace. The shadows shifted closer, not with threat, but with quiet reverence, a silent communion between your weary soul and the ancient hands of this sheltered place. The figure that had watched from the darkness stepped forward into the lantern's flickering glow. It was not a phantom of fear, but a presence woven of earth and time, clad in worn fabric, smelling faintly of smoke and rain, eyes reflecting the deep calm of the woods. You felt a strange recognition, a wordless greeting passing between you, as if the forest had chosen this moment to offer its final lullaby. Together, you turned toward the path, winding gently through the trees, the rain having softened to a mist that hung like soft linen, draping the woods in gray serenity. Each step along the tangled roots and leaf-strewn earth carried a quiet rhythm, the pace slow and unhurried, breathing life back into limbs numb from endless toil. The fragment's echo had faded, but its promise lingered like a whisper beneath your skin. A faint glow ahead marked the way, lantern light pirouetting between branches, casting playful shadows that twined with the roses of mist. The world no longer pressed heavily against your chest. Instead, it unfurled softly, inviting rest and renewal in its cool, damp breath. The memory of the workshop, the endless pressing, the ache of calloused hands, the acrid scent of pulp and firewood, receded gently, replaced by a peaceful rhythm steadying the pulse of night. The village beyond settled quietly behind you, murmurs returning like gentle waves, the distant flicker of lanterns borne on the soft breath of evening. Life stirred not with urgency, but with the slow surety of a river finding its course after a storm. You sensed the burden you once carried had passed, transferred like the hands of a seasoned craftsman, shaping threadbare fibers into something strong and enduring. Beneath the mellow sigh of ancient boughs, the rain ceased completely. The air thickened with the scent of fresh earth, and a fragile light broke through the canopy, a soft glow like dawn gathering just beyond the horizon. The weight of shadows lightened, and a hush like prayer settled over the forest, wrapping you in its gentle folds. You paused at the edge of a tranquil clearing, where moss spread thick and soft, the stones beneath cool and smooth, as if holding the breath of centuries. Your gaze lingered on the ground, a faint trace of the fragment's light, etched into the wet soil, a silent marker of journeys ended and new ones yet to begin. The distant bell's toll faded into a whisper, becoming one with the rustling leaves and the steady rhythm of your own steady breath. A subtle peace wrapped through your limbs, the ache in your arms dissolving into the calm weight of fulfilled purpose. Your eyes closed briefly, eyelashes catching the cool mist, as the forest's quiet embrace settled over you like a soft, worn cloak. In that moment, time slowed to the gentle cadence of a final heartbeat, steady and deep. The path back was open now, lined with memories woven into the fabric of rain and earth. You carried none of the fear that had gripped you at dawn, only the patient strength of knowing you had done what you could. Your story folded carefully into the quiet legacy of this ancient place. As you stood fully, the forest sighed a soft farewell, the lantern's last flicker bowing low beneath the stars' distant vigil. The eyes that had watched you melted slowly back into shadow, not with menace, but with the solemn grace of old guardians stepping quietly into the night. And so the night folded around you, a velvet curtain drawn gently shut on a tale worn like the grain of wood beneath your hands. Your breath deepened, the steady rhythm of peace cradling you until the soft pulse of sleep came slow and sure. The clearing grew still once more, mist weaving silver threads among the trees, wrapping the world in quiet dreams. The story was done, and now so could you rest.